Well, let's turn to the other big story and my talking point today, because amidst the COVID pandemic, farmers observed a nationwide stir to mark 6 months of their protest against Narendra Modi government's farm laws. The protesters observed today as a black day. They hoisted black flags from their homes, vehicles and other places as a mark of protest and also burnt effigies. The opposition parties have also come out in support of the farmers. The question though is this the right time to be protesting when we are still in the midst of COVID 2.0 and in states like Punjab, the positivity rate and case fatality ratio remains high? Here is our report.
No masks, no distancing, shunning vaccines, and all of this amid the raging second wave of the COVID pandemic. Farmer protesters marked the 26th of May as a black day, 6 months since they began their protest against the Modi government's farm laws. Maskless protesters with no social distancing took to the streets of 3 of Delhi's key border points, but the agitation peaked in Ghazipur.
It has been 6 months of the farmers' agitation here on this day at Delhi's Ghazipur. Prime Minister Modi's effigy is being borne by the farmers. The protest, which continues for the last 6 months here against the farm laws, the farmers yet again have triggered the stir further with the black flag, black turban and now burning effigy of Prime Minister Modi against the farm laws, as the farmers gave a call to protest, a nationwide protest, which is also supported by almost all the opposition parties.
Most of the protesters have so far shunned vaccines, calling the COVID pandemic a government ploy to divert focus. Many of the farmer protesters have been giving bizarre reasons as to why they flout COVID safety norms.
टीका लग गया आपको?
रिटायर होगा हैं?
टीका लगा आपको?
टीका तो मैं लगवाऊंगा ना। क्यों? मेरा कोरोना हो गया।
कोरोना ना होने के लिए तो टीका है।
ना हमें जरूरत भी ना, बीमार हो जाऊं मैं। 2 दिन तो बीमारी हो जाएंगे।
टीका लग गया आपको?
टीका कौन लगा? टीके हैं कहीं? हाँ।
और मास्क भी नहीं पहना आपने?
यूँ धरा मास्क हुक्का पी रहे। इससे बांध ले और क्या? हाँ, सबने पहन रखा।
पी रहे ना हुक्का।
अब रोटी खाएंगे जब भी मास्क लगा के खाएंगे।
रोटी तो नहीं खा सकते। हाँ। आपने भी नहीं पहना?
ये लगा रखा भाई।
इससे बच जाएगा?
अरे कुछ ना होने।
Makeshift tents are now permanent shelters, having all essentials necessary for survival, but throwing COVID precautions to the wind.
The tractors and trolleys have turned into a tent city of bamboo huts, but their defiance and their determination is still there. They say that they will not leave till the government agrees to repeal the farm laws.
Protests were also witnessed in Punjab, where similar scenes of burning effigies and black flags were seen. The farmers are refusing to relent and say there has been no communication with the government in recent times.
सरकार ने ये कहा कि एक फोन कॉल की दूरी पे है। हमें 4 महीने से वो नंबर नहीं मिला। अगर किसानों से फैल रही है, अगर बीमारी बढ़ी है, तो कानून कैंसिल कर दो।
The stir runs the threat of turning into a COVID superspreader event, especially with reports of earlier COVID deaths at protest sites. The protests in the backdrop of the COVID crisis in Delhi and Punjab may also dent India's fight against the virus and the country's preparations ahead of the certain third wave. With Ashutosh Mishra, Anisha Mathur and Manjeet Sehgal, Bureau Report, India Today.
So, is it time to call off the farm protests? Have the farm protests become super spreaders? Or is it time for the government to simply pull back from the farm laws? I'm joined by Yogendra Yadav of the Swaraj Abhiyan, who's been one of the leading faces of this farm agitation, by Sambit Patra, the BJP's spokesperson, and by Dr. Ajoy Kumar of the Congress. Gentlemen, before I come to you, I want to show you a picture of the ground reality, because our correspondent Preeti Chaudhary has been on the ground and she's been speaking with local residents around the Singhu border, which has been the epicenter of the farm protests for the last 6 months. She asked them a simple question: do they want these protests to continue in COVID times or not? Listening to what the farmers said.
The Singhu border has been the epicenter of the farmer protest. The crowds had thinned, but now are being mobilized again to mark 26th May. It is the 6-month anniversary of the farmer protest against the 3 farm laws. While the protesters start to gather in huge numbers at Singhu border, we visit the border villages, most falling into Sonipat district, Haryana. Sympathy still lies with the farmers at Pitampura village, but there is an appeal to them to stem the gathering till the contagion stem.
मैम देखिए, अगर कोरोना सच में ही जो रूप हमने देखा है उस हिसाब से किसानों को भी कुछ एक स्टैंड बाय मोड लेना चाहिए ताकि वो फिर से इस चीज को कंटिन्यू कर सके.
The old guard in this village makes their allegiance clear.
मोदी साहब ने, हम तो जी आप जैसे की सुने हैं या थोड़ा घना टीवी पे सुन ले हैं, तो ही मोदी साहब ने ये कही थी प्रधानमंत्री ने कि 1 सेकंड की कॉल है, 1 मिनट की दूरी है, वो मिनट का ना पता जी कब तक आओगी. इसमें हमने भी मारेगी, इन लोगों ने मारेगी, पब्लिक ने भी मारेगा मोदी साहब. पता ना जी कहाँ तक के फैलेगा हो के ना कहाँ तक जाएगी.
Jyoti here runs the local chemist store, the only shop allowed to remain open the last 1 month. She is a fence sitter when it comes to the protest taking place 800 meters away from her.
बस रोड जाम हो जाते हैं, आने जाने में भी परेशानियां होती हैं और इसी काम आसपास के नज़दीक के जो वर्कर्स हैं काम बंद हो रखा है. बस ये चीजें हैं और तो मुझे ज़्यादा इतनी वो नहीं है.
6 months ago, a lot of Indian hearts bled for the cause of our farmers. 6 months on, India has been brought to its knees under a brutal COVID surge. Hearts are cramped with grief, leaving very little space for empathy. The fallacy of the anti-COVID Teflon coating has long been shattered by super-spreader events like the Kumbh in Uttarakhand, the Panchayat elections in Uttar Pradesh, the state elections in West Bengal. So when a protest willfully wants to peak during a pandemic, should there be empathy? That's the thing about empathy. Timing plays a huge part in invoking it. Reporting with camera person Hitesh Kumar in Sonipat district, Haryana, Preeti Chaudhary for India Today.
Which are precisely the questions I want to raise tonight. Is this the right time to be going in for large-scale farmer protests? Can farmer protests become super spreaders as they have in some parts of Punjab already? Is it time to call off the protests? Should the centre resume talks with farmers? Yogendra Yadav, why don't you take that? Because the fact is that is this the right time to be going ahead with the farm protests, whereas we've seen many farmers not vaccinated, many of them over the age of 45, many of them above 65, no social distancing, and in many of them not even wearing masks. I mean, how can you then protest against the Kumbh Mela and then say the farm protests are okay?
Rajdeep, I wish to begin with some clarification. I think your reporter said, is this the time to peak the movement? And you are saying time to take organized massive protests, etc. I don't think that's factually correct. I don't think you noticed the basic fact. Our call for 26 is not about creating any major crowd anywhere. Remember, we could have easily organized 50 Mahapanchayats today. We did not organize a single one. We could have easily called for massive demonstrations. There is none because it was our clear understanding, clear messaging, which I think must have worked in 95 out of 100 cases, that we do not want any major crowds to be mobilized anywhere. In most cases, what has happened is as and where basis. If you are on your morcha, you mark it on that morcha. If you are on a dharna, you mark it on that dharna. Yes, I can see some 50 people somewhere, 100 people somewhere gathering for 15 or 20 minutes. That is all that has happened today. There is none. If there is any video, please show me, of thousands of people gathering in one place.
Yogendra Yadav, even these gatherings, with due regard, even these gatherings of 100 people at places without masks, without social distancing, unvaccinated, are potential super spreaders. We have done stories on the ground from Punjab, a state which has the highest case fatality ratio in the country at the moment of 2.8%. So there are genuine concerns that the farm protests, even if, as you're saying, they're limited in character at the moment, can be potential spreaders of coronavirus. Why not pull back? Every protest must have a moment when you pull back.
That's my problem with what you are saying, Rajdeep. Everything else I'm willing to concede and agree. Yes, I agree this is a genuine concern. Yes, I agree we should be careful. I would probably agree we should be more careful than we have been. On vaccination, please remember, we have invited state authorities to open vaccination counters. Wherever they have opened, vaccination has been happening. And about super spreader, please tell me of the 6-7 morchas in Delhi, if any of them have had cases which are even slightly more than neighboring colonies. And Rajdeep, I'm sure you would not ask the bastis of Delhi to be vacated. You do not ask the villages of Haryana to be vacated because they have 10 cases, because they have 5 cases. Our morchas are no different. These are settled villages. These are settled colonies. We do have massive gatherings. So if you said, please be even more careful, I would say, yes, we should be even more careful. But if you say, please vacate, I'm
not saying vacate, but look at the visuals. I'm not saying vacate, but clearly the visuals are going against the curfew rules that exist in these 3 states of Delhi, Haryana and Punjab. What do you tell, for example, today shopkeepers who for the last 1 month have closed their shops because of curfew rules, but farmers can carry on their protest? The point is, even if they are symbolic in nature, if they have a health risk, surely public health today outweighs all else, Yogendra Yadav.
Rajdeep, I would once again concede, yes, public health outweighs. Media has not paid sufficient attention to the kind and detail of precautions that we have taken, that we have been extremely reasonable about it. I should not get into details of what Haryana Chief Minister did 5 days ago. Everyone showed pictures of farmers gathering. But I think sufficient pictures were shown about Haryana CM himself inaugurating in the middle of that so-called curfew 144, where hundreds of people are standing next to Haryana Chief Minister. That no one says Haryana Chief Minister should be arrested, but every focus is on farmers with the demand that you should withdraw the protest. I'm simply saying, if saying we protest in our home, please remember the basic call for today was, please fly a flag on your home, on your tractor, your vehicle. That was the principal call.
Okay.
And wherever you gather to do effigy burning, which is about 10-15 minutes affair, that is all that has happened. Please do not compare that to other super spreaders that you are talking about. Just a factual clarification.
Yes. Let me take that to Dr. Sambit Patra, because somewhere in what Yogendra Yadav says lies perhaps the reason why political parties like the ruling BJP, for example, ruling in Haryana and ruling at the center, cannot take the moral high ground, Dr. Patra, because your leaders just went, including yourself, on a hectic political campaign through March and April. And as has been pointed out by Yogendra Yadav, Manohar Lal Khattar, the Haryana Chief Minister, was inaugurating large gatherings. We'll try and get visuals of that as well. The fact is, the politicians themselves have been engaging in blatant, brazen violation of COVID protocols. So who is the political class to tell farmers, please don't agitate?
First and foremost, Rajdeep, if only good English, good articulation and erudite ways could defend the indefensible, then probably Mr. Yogendra Yadav would have his way. But the visuals, in fact, speak for themselves. The visuals that were put forth by the television channels, by your channel, in fact, right now, I mean, thousands. I would not say they were just minuscule few. There were thousands of farmers protesting without any COVID protocol.
Hundreds. Let me be fair, there were hundreds. But you will, as usual, divert from my question. My question to you is, how do you take the moral high ground? Because you allowed the Kumbh Mela to take place. You participated in an election campaign. Go ahead.
So supposedly, Rajdeep, there is a nuclear bombardment by US again today. You would say that, so what? There was a nuclear bombardment in Japan way back in 1940s. So we have a second nuclear bombardment. How can we in fact speak about that? So this is not justification. There's nothing to laugh about it, Mr. Yogendra Yadav. These are issues of great importance, and for God's sake, we are educated people sitting on a channel which is seen by thousands of people. And to come and defend the indefensible, hundreds and thousands, How does it matter? We have hundreds here at 10 places. It counts to thousands. Naturally, thousands of people returning back to their respective villages. And what is this erudite way of defending, saying only for 20 minutes they gathered to burn effigies, so they are corona-proof? Why? Corona does not spread within 20 minutes. Where are the scientific records for the same, sir? And remember, as far as these so-called farmers' protests are concerned, right from day one, I would say 3 words will describe them best: irresponsible, irresponsible, and irresponsible.
So how do you describe? I'm going to play the pictures in a moment. My producer will play of election rallies and of the Kumbh Mela. How do you describe that? How do you describe that as irresponsible when BJP leaders undertake road shows across the election campaign weeks ago when the Kumbh Mela takes place? Is that irresponsible or not?
So you mean to say that, in fact, if we had not only Bharatiya Janata Party, the Congress Party, the left parties, TMC, all of us had in fact, during the course of time, during the democratic course of time, some electoral rallies, during which, in fact, the COVID pandemic's graph had not gone to the extent that it is today. And of course, I would say that, well, yes, if the Election Commission, which was approached by all political parties, and in fact, if a consensus would have been reached, we would have all followed the consensus. But there was no consensus as far as the political parties are concerned. Some wanted a rally, some did not want a rally, some wanted a virtual rally. Others
you are also defending the indefensible.
No,
the
I'm not
Election
defending.
Commission has claimed that they wanted to bring in restrictions, but you went on grand road shows. And the fact is the numbers had already started rising from the end of March, the first week of February.
Rajdeep,
Let's be very clear. The tragedy is no one has been responsible.
Well, Rajdeep, so good. Please carry on with these protests. Let Punjab
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying how do you take the moral high ground?
No. I would not take any ground. Let Yogendra Yadav have all the moral high ground of not reporting even a rape case. Let him have all the moral high grounds and let him be very happy about it, smiling and laughing that the highest mortality rate today is in Punjab. And remember, it is Bajwa, the minister from Punjab, the minister of the ruling party, the Congress party, not BJP minister, who categorically said that these farmers are super spreaders who are returning from the farmers' protest. Remember, Captain Amrinder Singh, the chief minister, in fact, writing letters to BKU and others, saying that we don't want these protests right now because Punjab is going through a rough phase of time. And astonishingly, Sonia Gandhi supports the protest, Yogendra Yadav supports the protest, but the politicians in Punjab do not want this protest. Go ahead. Enjoy your protest.
No. So you are at one moment defending what happened in the elections, but you're criticizing the farmers. Okay, that's your viewpoint. Let me get and you very cleverly skipped out of the Kumbh Mela, which you said presumably Dr. Patra, was it responsible to have a Kumbh Mela in COVID times?
Okay, well. See, as far as the Kumbh Mela is concerned, none other than the Prime Minister himself gave out a strong message that this has to be symbolic. You cannot continue with the Kumbh Mela. And I'm thankful to the Sant Samagam. Most of the Sant Samagam, in fact, agreed with the Prime Minister's words. They came out and said, well, yes, we will have a symbolic Kumbh Mela, and they proceeded with the symbolic Kumbh Mela. Okay. But let me tell you, this is why the toolkit is of extreme importance. To say to it that the Kumbh Melas are super spreaders, while one tries to, in fact, give a blanket cover to the farmers' agitation that they are not super spreaders, this is why the toolkit does exist.
We are in fact questioning the farmer protests as well as the Kumbh Mela. We question all forms of potential super spreaders. But before I come to Ajay Kumar, Yogendra Yadav, any reason why you were smiling while Dr. Patra was speaking? He's rather upset with you smiling while he was speaking.
What do you do, Rajdeep, if someone says this is like America dropping an atomic bomb in Japan in 1947, that being used to justify something today? For heaven's sake, we are talking about something which happened during the second wave in this country. Mr. Patra, not in Japan, not 50 years ago. I was only laughing. I should have actually been shouting. I wish I could call it erudite. I want to say he's otherwise a very erudite person, but what he said today was not erudite, so I could just laugh at it.
But you're unapologetic. Therefore, Mr. Yadav, let's be clear. While you are saying either way, surely there should be some concern. We don't see that concern. Just as Dr. Patra doesn't seem to see concern over election rallies, there seems to be a willing to rationalize, justify the farm protests as well. This is COVID times.
Actually, Rajdeep, you've not probably heard me carefully. I began by concern. I ended with concern. This is a serious concern. And incidentally, that is precisely, I'm glad Dr. Patra mentioned symbolic nature of the Kumbh Mela, which incidentally happened after 30 lakh people had done their Shahi Snan. But what happened today, Rajdeep, was exactly that, symbolic. This is symbolic protest. Farmers.
Rajdeep, can I ask a question to Yogendraji? 10 seconds?
Yes, very quickly. Yes.
Yes. 100 rallies of 10,000 people.
Okay, you're calling it symbolic.
Yes. Single one of that. We decided to go for symbolic precisely.
Okay, what symbolic, what constitutes symbolic is contentious, but yes, Dr. Patra, go ahead, ask your question.
Yogendraji, in these videos, I cannot see you anywhere. Were you there on the ground symbolically, though, or you chose to be at your home? And are you vaccinated by any way?
I'm very happy to share the video with you, Patraji. I was at Shahjahanpur, very much participating in that symbolic protest. No, I was not at home. Do you want a video? I would happily send you that.
Oh, please send the video. We should show the video that these people, including Mr. Tiket, they themselves get vaccinated. They are protected. They use all the norms, like they use face shield for themselves. They use mask for themselves. But they push the poor farmers, those who are above 60 years of age, above 45 years of age, in fact, to die. This is what I believe is contentious. Okay. Something which really has to be contested and nothing to smile and laugh about.
Okay,
I use mask and I encourage everyone to use mask, whoever listens to me.
But your followers are not using masks.
No, 1 minute. Now, you know, before it becomes personal between Dr. Patra and Yadav, there's a third person, because the Congress party was among the opposition parties supporting this. And interestingly, Dr. Ajoy Kumar, look at what is happening. Amrinder Singh, Punjab Chief Minister, saying call off the protest, don't go ahead with the Black Day. On the other hand, the Congress leadership in Delhi has encouraged the farmers, saying we are going to support your protest. I mean, the Congress also needs to speak in one voice. What do you want? Do you want potential super spreader events in Punjab? Let's be clear. Statistically, data suggests that yes, the farmer protests have led in some parts of Punjab to an increase in COVID cases. It has the worst case fatality ratio at 2.8%. Your chief minister is calling them off, wants it to be called off.
No, first of all, you need to distinguish between a super spreader event and what is a protest. The fact is that if you see the visuals which are coming out, I mean, I have a photo of Mr. Amit Shah with 100 people, hundreds of people during COVID time because they waited to inaugurate a center in Gandhinagar. The question is, Mr. Amrinder Singh or the Punjab government or the Congress at the center will continue. We support the farmers' protest on ideological reasons, and that is different. That the difference, if you have a Mahapanchayat, if you have thousands of people coming in, if you have tens of thousands of people coming in, that's a different issue. But the question again is, I think the government,
how can you speak in one language in Chandigarh and one language in Delhi? No, Amrinder Singh says the farm protests are super spreaders.
No, one sec. You yourself said there were around 50 to 100 odd people. And the Punjab government, Mr. Amrinder Singh in Punjab or the Congress in Delhi or Mrs. Sonia Gandhi or all of the Congress have protested and supported the Congress, the farmers' agitation today. We also had black flag demonstration. One sec, I'll complete. We had black flag demonstration. The question is, let's distinguish between a protest and if you're going to equate them with a super spreader event. The super spreader event was when 2,000 teachers died in Panchayat elections. Kumbh Mela, my colleague Dr. Patra said that Prime Minister's, people responded to the Prime Minister. No, nobody responded to the Prime Minister. That's again a false toolkit which they're propagating. The fact is that there was nobody listened to the Prime Minister because the Prime Minister and the Home Ministers got no moral authority. The Kumbh Mela or the elections or any other occasion have got no authority to start. And people in India, that is why this deterioration is happening. The question again, I think the farmers did a reasonably good job. Not ideal. One second, Rajdeep, I'll just finish in 5 seconds. The farmers' protest is critical because the blame lies on the central government. Why aren't they speaking? Which government in modern democracy doesn't pick up the phone and speak to its own people? So you are saying that I will push you to the wall, I will throttle your neck and I won't pick up the phone?
That's the point. Okay. Let Dr. Patra, this can be resolved very easily. Why is it? Just as you say that the farmers are being irresponsible, is the government also partly at least being ineffective in reaching out to the farmers? I mean, surely this can be resolved. Just say very clearly, we have decided to put the farm laws on the back burner. We are not going ahead with them for the next 2 years. What you all have said at times needs to be now implemented. COVID is the bigger challenge. Farm laws can now take a back seat. Let the government say that. Resolve the protests.
But Rajdeep, they are in the backseat already. They are in abeyance for 1.5 years. So it's a matter of 6 more months, you mean to say. 2 years, you said. I'm saying by the grace of the court, in fact, they are already in abeyance for 1.5 years. So nothing is being implemented right now. So what is this steering hurry? And I didn't understand my good friend, a very good police officer, former police officer or doctor, saying that there is a difference between super spreader and protests. Protests do not, in fact, equate to super spreaders. My God, Ajay, what is the difference between a protest and a super spreader? Where you have thousands of people. That is Ajay, I did not speak. Ajay, I did not. Ajay, I did not speak when you were speaking. Ajay, ask anyone in this world who understands a protest can be a super spreader if there is contact without COVID protocols, if there are people without masks, face shield, etc., if they're closely standing by as they were, and when they return to their villages, there are stories, umpteen number of stories. These farmers, when they return back to their villages, they are the ones who have become super spreaders, and we have multiple deaths in many of these border areas.
Since you are both doctors in one avatar, Ajay Kumar, no, 1 minute. Ajay Kumar, what is the difference between a protest and a super spreader event? What is the difference?
No, my question again is, if you're protesting, maintaining COVID protocol, your mask, you're maintaining distances. Now, when the BJP was protesting in Bengal and they were arrested, their MLA was arrested under the COVID, violating COVID protocol, they said there is no COVID protocol violation. The fact is that you can protest. You can protest with your mask on, you can protest with keeping 10 feet of distances, and you can actually burn effigies with maintaining distance.
The fact is, I wish life was that simple, that we could have controlled protests in this country, observing social distancing, masks and vaccinations. At the moment, that is not happening in the manner it should. Now, Yogendra Yadav... No, 1 minute, sir. No, 1 minute.
It is 6 months. Supreme Court has only put it in abeyance for 6 months.
Yes, Yogendra Yadav, taking off from that, what is it now that the farmer protesters want? The Supreme Court has put it in abeyance. The government is also saying we are not going to push ahead with the farm laws. Therefore, what is it that the farmers want at the moment? You're on mute. Yogendra, you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Just 2 quick points before that, Rajdeep. I have sent you a WhatsApp message with the clip of video that Dr. Patra wanted. Please share with him. Otherwise, he would be under the impression that I was staying at home.
No, this is the video. This is the video Yogendra Yadav has sent of him. He is there at the protest. You are masked. These are the protests. But as I can see, Yogendra Yadav, there are about at least 70, 80 people here. And I see many of them are not masked. So not everyone has accepted your claim to be masked. Let's be clear, Yogendra Yadav. You may want them to be masked. They have not accepted it. But
Rajdeep,
go ahead.
I have myself shared this video already about 5-6 hours ago, so there's nothing private or secret about it. I just wanted to assure Dr. Patra that I was not sitting at home, number one. Number two, the difference, are farmers corona-proof? Of course not. Are they super spreaders? Super spreader would depend on the numbers and the time involved. If today we were to say, let's gather 10,000 people, 50,000 people, which we have gathered 2 months ago. If we said today is our biggest protest, let's have rallies for 5 hours of 10,000 people and you called it super spreader, I would agree. That would be a problem. But when 70, 80 people gather, in my Shahjahanpur, I can tell you, I think it lasted about 12 minutes or so. To call these things super spreader would be a misnomer. Otherwise, you would have to
Yogendra Yadav ji, I am asking you, what is it that will take? Why not just pull back? You know, the great Mahatma also knew when to pull back. Why not just pull back and say, look, put the laws on, the laws are in abeyance for now. We will discuss this later. Why not?
Because we have come here to make a point which is a matter of life and death for the farmers. Because farmers are of the opinion that yes, there is a genuine risk. We want to minimize the risk, but no. Unlike the NTCA protest, we this time do not want to disperse because this is exactly what the regime wants. Okay. Rajdeep, once again I'm saying, if you want us to observe more careful, to observe protocols even better, I'm with you. I would try and persuade my friends, my colleagues, to be even more careful. But when this argument is used, in order to say, please disperse, please dismantle, please go away, I smell something else there. That should not be the argument.
Okay.
That's the only point I'm making.
Not very clear.
No, but
voice.
so therefore, Dr. Patra, in conclusion, what stops the Modi government in COVID times from reaching out and just resolving this? It seems the government also has used the cloak of COVID to virtually stop negotiations and discussion and dialogue with the farmers.
The government had been negotiating and discussing with the farmers and will continue to
That was
do
4
so.
months ago.
And you know, just a second, Rajdeep, you would agree to the fact that the most unprecedented situation that the country is facing today is of COVID. There are pressing issues as far as COVID is concerned. The farm laws are in no urgency because they're in abeyance. I believe that for at least the minimum support price as a citizen that we expect from anyone in this country is to care for one's own life and the lives of others.
I wish you had said that during the election. I agree with you. But I wish the Prime Minister, Home Minister, opposition leaders had said this during the election campaign. Instead of there, you were calling, "Aao, zyada log aao. Dekho bheed kitni ho rahi hai." You were actually celebrating it.
No, you
can't have two rules.
Absolutely wrong. So you mean to say that, well, yes, the farmer should go ahead?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying there must be one rule. You have lost the moral right to lecture to the farmers. That's my worry.
So, okay, we might have lost, but at least you have not lost.
I haven't.
You can give them the lecture then.
I believe they should also call off the protest. That's why I'm doing the discussion.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. For once, you and I are in agreement. But I wish you had shown the same spirit during the election campaign. Then you needed votes. Today you're talking about public health. Let's leave it there. I've run out of time, my friends. We will continue to raise issues because we do believe that COVID is the #1 issue of the time, and we need to do whatever we can to ensure there is no spread of the virus. The farmers have their concerns, grievances, they're legitimate, and they must be addressed as well in a democratic manner.